City Center Radio. It is episode 193, and I am your host, Christian Sanger. Today is Wednesday, November 15th, 2023. Welcome to the latest edition of Holy City Center Radio. I hope you all are doing well. Weather cooling off a little bit. It's not too bad by any stretch of the imagination, but does get a little chilly at night. It's definitely clearly fall is here, winter very much nipping at the heels, but I hope you are staying warm and having fun and things are going well in your world. It's been a little bit quieter the last few days for me after a very super busy week last week with concerts and things like that. No events, nothing going on as far as that's concerned, but definitely doing a lot of things on the site, which I will talk about here in a moment. And speaking of, the site update is part of the news update on the podcast, so let's get into it. Yes, if you haven't noticed already, the brand new edition of holycitycenter.com has officially launched. You can go check it out now. I don't think it's a super dramatic change, but certainly a new layout on the website. I think it's a little bit better looking, gives you an opportunity to see a few more stories, and they're broken up in a different way instead of the old running list I had, although there's still a way for you to view that. If you just click on the news tab, you'll see any news posts, shown in descending order from the most recently post and, on down from there. But the homepage itself has some, separate sections. So now you can see, all right, here are the top stories. Here's what's going on in the food and bev world. Here's what's going on entertainment-wise. Here's some events and sports and some other things. So I hope you're enjoying it. There definitely going to be a few bugs or maybe some content missing or things not looking exactly right. I'm still plugging away at some behind-the-scenes things. But if you see anything that seems to be a pretty big deal, go ahead and let me know, Christian at holycitycenter.com, or if you have any questions, feedback, etc., that certainly will be appreciated. One big thing to note, if you bookmarked the events page, specifically, that link is probably not working, so you just have to go to holycitycenter.com and then check out the new events page, which I had so many events loaded in my old calendar program I was using on the old site. The new site has its own type of program. I think in the long run, it'll be better. But right now, because there's so many events, plus I'm still trying to, upload new content as normal, it's going to take a little while for that calendar to be fully loaded. So in the meantime, you can still access the old calendar. So when you go to the Holy City Center homepage, you'll see an option to just go look at the old calendar so you can see stuff that's been previously loaded, ahead of this switchover. So bear with me a little bit. I appreciate, people, giving me some grace and, just understanding that there's going to be a few, tweaks and things that'll go on, but hopefully for not much longer. I'm working hard on it to make sure the new site not only looks nice, but also is operating as it should. As I've previously mentioned, this is part of a bigger project, which will be announced shortly. Just can't talk about it quite yet, but I'm excited about that, just as I was excited about this new website design. And just moving the site forward after 12 years, a few big changes are in the works. So I'm excited about that. I appreciate your continued support, and I think you'll be excited about the new things coming forward. But yeah, if you haven't yet, go to holycitycenter.com, check it out. As usual, the mobile version of the site, so if you're on like your phone or an iPad, it's going to look different than if you're on a laptop or desktop computer. It's a little bit more streamlined for phones, of course. But if you want to see the full layout, you can go ahead and do that from a laptop or a computer. Regardless, you'll be able to see what's going on in town, and nothing's changed as far as content is concerned. And again, if you have any feedback or notice anything going on, please let me know. All right, now into the regular news here around town. Although we spent pretty much the whole last podcast talking about voting, as there are runoff elections, because today is the first day of early voting for those runoff elections. I wanted to revisit in case you either missed the last podcast, forgot the details, or just needed a reminder. But yes, as of as you're listening to this podcast, assuming you were listening on Wednesday, November 15th, early voting is now underway in Charleston County. There are 3 runoff elections that you may be able to vote in depending on where you live in town. The 3 races that are facing a runoff are the Charleston Mayor's race, Charleston City Council District 9, and there is a Folly Beach City Council race also going to a runoff. For the Charleston mayoral race, incumbent Mayor John Tecklenburg is looking to get his third and what he said would be his final term as mayor, but he is facing a tough challenger in State Representative William Cogswell, who actually finished 3 points ahead of incumbent Mayor John Tecklenburg during the general election. So we'll see if, people who maybe had voted for the third place candidate, Clay Middleton, or some of the other folks on the ballot, like Mika Gadsden, if any of their supporters will go to Tecklenburg, or will Cogswell, win this just like he quote unquote won, the first time around, but because no one got 50% of the vote, it goes to a runoff. So these are always interesting to see if the top vote getter is still the top vote getter in the runoff, or if it's one of those things where the votes were kind of split, and now that they're down to 2 choices, they're going to go to Tecklenburg. It'll be really interesting to see how it plays out. So if you are eligible to vote for the mayor of Charleston, you can do so starting today, and that will run through Friday. I'll give you some more details on that in just a moment. Meanwhile, the 2 top vote getters in the Charleston City Council District 9 race are going head-to-head in their runoff. That is William Tinkler and Mike Gaston. Gaston has been recommended by Moms for Liberty, so just keep that in mind if you have strong opinions on that group, which I'm sure many of you do, like myself. So we will see who ends up taking that seat in District 9, which was formerly held by Peter Shade, who was also running for mayor of Charleston. Ultimately, I believe he ended up in 4th place, so they will be taking his spot on city council. And if you were out in Folly Beach, their city council race is a runoff between Billy Grooms, who got about 14% of the vote, and Ann Peets, who brought in 13%. So the top vote getter between those two will serve on Folly Beach City Council. So voters who live within the city limits of Charleston or Folly Beach will be able to vote in at least one of the races that I just mentioned. Voters who live in City Council District 9 will, of course, be able to vote for that race and the mayor's race. Early voting, as I mentioned, began today and runs through this coming Friday. It's going to be from 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. at the Board of Voter Registration and Elections, which is located at 4340 Corporate Road. That is actually where the Board of Voter Registration and Elections headquarters is. So early voting will no longer be held at the former location that the headquarters had in a different address in North Charleston. This one is now at their new headquarters, like I said, at 4340 Corporate Road. That also means you cannot, if you're doing early voting, you cannot vote like at your normal polling place. You have to go to the Board of Voter Registration and Elections either today, Thursday, or Friday. Eligible residents do not need to have participated in the general election, which was on November 7th, to participate in these runoffs. So if you didn't vote for whatever reason in the runoffs, and you can vote in one of these 3, if for whatever reason you didn't vote in the general election, you can still vote for one of these 3 runoff races, as long as, of course, you're within, whichever district or whichever city those things are happening in. The actual election day itself is next week. But of course, it's going to be a little bit hectic for a lot of us, I'm sure, with Thanksgiving coming up and travel and all that. So keep that in mind. If you're like, oh, you know what, I'm not going to have time next week, or I'm not going to be in town, you're going to want to do the whole early voting option. If you want to get some more information, or, I was going a little bit too fast there for you. I know a lot of people listen when they're driving or working out or what have you. You can just hit the link in the show notes. for details again about where to vote and what races have gone to a runoff. You can also go to chsvotes.gov to see if you're unsure if you were able to vote in any of those 3 races. You'll be able to find out there. For those wondering, when it comes to early voting, just like the general election on November 7th, you don't have to have a reason for voting early, so you can just go. It doesn't matter. But again, that corporate road address is the only place people can cast a ballot during that early voting window. We did cover mail-in ballots, for people who, or I shouldn't say mail-in, for absentee ballots. I covered that in the last podcast, so you should have that information on that last episode if you need to go back. And if you do plan on being in town and voting on election day, it's November 21st, which is, a week from today. And of course, the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. You can vote from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. at your normal polling location. We knew the drama with the Charleston County School Board of Trustees was not going to be over. They successfully parted ways with the former superintendent now, Dr. Eric Gallion, and we knew it wasn't going to stop there. This week, they decided, we're going to reconsider our decision to remove 6 health advisory committee members. No surprise, the reconsideration didn't really seem to be anything but a show to put on. Like, oh, yeah, we'll reconsider since there's concerns, but you knew where this was going to go. So on Monday night, the board met as normal. And despite claiming they were going to reconsider this decision, they still voted to remove 4 of the committee members. And of course, things got a little heated, which should be no surprise. So this whole thing involving the Health Advisory Committee and removing members and bringing new members on was brought forward by board member Ed Kelly. He's one of the Moms for Liberty back candidates. The committee had 5 vacant positions, so it wasn't abnormal that it was brought up. But 10 new names were listed by Kelly at a past meeting. So they were going to, replace those 5 vacant positions, but then also dismiss some of the other current members, 6 in total. They wanted to, just say, hey, you're done with this. We don't want you anymore, trying to get some of their people in there instead of, real professionals. So the Health Advisory Committee is made up of 13 members, and they do a few different things. As you could tell from the title, they advise the board on certain health topics. Now, of course, during the pandemic, that may have been included, but they also review sex education curriculum and make recommendations to the board. So the argument that Kelly had came up with is that he thinks that South Carolina's state law is being broken because it says that school districts may not offer abortion counseling, information about abortions, or assist in obtaining abortion materials. He also said that the committee speaks about alternative genders and the topic of anal and oral sex in a positive manner. So all of those things is what he was upset about. Now, in response to that, the Charleston County School District Instructional Specialist for Health and Physical Education, that is a woman by the name of Holly Cutt, and she supports the committee from an information perspective, saying that the curriculum meets state standards and is aligned and is age appropriate. So it seems that Kelly was wrong, at least according to Cutt, saying, no, the curriculum meets state standards and it's definitely age appropriate. Cutt went on to say, quote, if you go and look at those lessons and read those, you'll see that there is no lesson on abortion. There's no lesson that teaches gender identity or sexual orientation. We stick to the standards, end quote. So a few things to note here. One, Ed Kelly comes up with these reasons for why he needs to get these people off the board. Sounds like his reasons weren't even accurate. So that's problem number 1. Problem number 2 is that, according to members of the committee, no one on the board even asked to go over the curriculum with them. So you would think if state law was being broken by putting in material that's not supposed to be in there, you would think there would have been some sort of meeting. Hey, we see here on these pages of your curriculum or whatever, official documents where Ed Kelly's claiming these things are. This appears to break state law. They could talk through it. They could remove it. I don't see what the problem is. You keep the advisory, committee members there. There's no reason to get rid of them unless they refused, oh no, we don't care about state law. We're breaking it. But all they had to do is bring up their concerns, talk about the curriculum, and they could have worked together to update it if it indeed did break any state law. But as we've known from the beginning, with these Moms for Liberty backed candidates, they don't actually care about this stuff. They're not interested in facts. They're not interested in hearing when they say something that apparently is BS, being told that it's BS. They don't care. And again, as I've said, why would they? They have the majority. They can get in meetings, they can just get yelled at. I mean, nobody should be yelling, but they can be scolded. They can be told they're wrong. They can be told that they're either lying or misinformed, and they won't respond, and they'll just still vote how they want to vote. So again, no surprise, despite being told, hey, no, that's not happening. We're not breaking state law. You guys haven't even come to us and asked to discuss this. Not to mention, none of the people on the board, especially not Ed Kelly, they don't have a background in anything related to health. So why does he feel he knows better than those folks? It's because his beliefs are his personal beliefs. And although accurate things may be taught, he doesn't want those things to be taught. It's just part of the culture war nonsense that we've talked about over and over and over again. It's just ridiculous. And one of the district board members who is not one of the Moms for Liberty folks, Miss Darlene Dunmeyer Roberson, said that to Ed Kelly, quote, "You are saying that your knowledge, Mr. Kelly, is greater than all of these people that have expertise in the area. That is very concerning to me," end quote. It's very concerning to me too, and should be to all of you as well. This board has made another just decision that flies in the face of education. We know better than the people who have expertise in this. We don't like how this committee is operating. They're not doing anything wrong. We just don't like it. Our personal beliefs are offended, and so we're going to kick them out, and we're going to get some of our lackeys in there, who will just do what we want them to do and say what they want to say. And of course, when it comes to things like a health advisory committee, if you're getting people in there who are not following, the actual evidence or science or whatever else, if they're just people in there doing the bidding of people who are trying to fight a culture war, it's only going to hurt the children. It's going to harm the children. This board continues to do that. It's ridiculous. So that was the latest with this board. Thankfully we saw in this last election that a lot of the Moms for Liberty either recommended or all out endorsed candidates were not successful in their run. So word is getting out about, hey, they say they're this, which on the surface sounds like, oh yeah, that makes sense. They're not really that thing. And people are starting to realize that. And this isn't just, again, it's not one side coming out and voting more than the other. This is a bipartisan thing. Whether people tend to vote Democrat or Republican, a lot of people are realizing, oh no, this group is too extreme. They're not actually interested in helping children. And when it comes down to it, we want people there who are not going to play political games, even if maybe we agree with some of the politics that they have. This isn't how the school board should operate, and we need to put a stop to it. So thankfully, we're seeing them get defeated in other races. Brian Hicks with the Post and Courier had an editorial specifically about Mount Pleasant and how they pretty much wholesale rejected Moms for Liberty in some of those races. So I encourage you to check that out as well. A quick note, just kind of as an FYI, the South Carolina Department of Agriculture will start handing out the health and cleanliness grades cleanliness grade, sorry, that you see at public dining establishments, the little letter grade that they must display, in their window, on their door, whatever it may be. So starting with the government's new fiscal year, which is July 1st, the South Carolina Department of Agriculture will be taking that over. It was previously under the purview of the South Carolina Department of Health and Environmental Control, also known as DHEC. They've been handling those inspections for decades, but this switch is part of a new state law that's designed to restructure DHEC, and it seems to make sense that the Department of Agriculture will be overlooking, food establishments. Seems to jive with what their office should be doing. So that agriculture agency will now be responsible for all retail food safety inspections, including commercial kitchens, school cafeterias, catering businesses, grocery stores, and even some convenience stores. It's also going to take over DHEC's manufactured food programs, which oversees the safety of things like soft drinks, cheese, dairy products, bottled water, and ice. So just want a little FYI there. Not much more to the story. You can check the link in the show notes if you do want to read more, but just know that will be changing hands on July 1st in case you have any concerns or want to look into anything. All right, and lastly, we've got some sports news, and unfortunately, it's a bit of a bummer. The Charleston Battery ended their 2023 season as runner-up in the USL Championship Final. They lost to Phoenix Rising Football Club in that title game that was played at Patriots Point in Mount Pleasant. I watched the end of the game, and it was thrilling. Battery were up 1-0 for a little bit. Then Phoenix Rising ended up tying the match. Ended up at the end of regulation still tied, so they went to an extra period, still tied, and so then it went to penalty kicks. So that shootout is always dramatic, and this was Battery were looking good after those first two, rounds, as it were, but in the end, they ended up falling 3-2. Phoenix Rising are your USL champions. It's the first time that they've won the title. The Battery have actually won before. It's been over 10 years, I think, since they've won a title. So a little bit of a bummer, but a heck of a season. If you caught any games, you know that. They played so well all year. Always entertaining, even on off years. It's always fun to go to minor league games, whether it's baseball, soccer, hockey, but it's always a little bit more fun when the team is winning, of course. So I'm sure a lot of folks had some awesome memories this year. The team, it was just fantastic. It's certainly heartbreaking to lose in the championship, especially in the manner that they did on a penalty kick shootout. But I hope those players and the whole organization are proud with the season they had. Another positive about the final, it was played in front of a record-setting sold-out crowd of over 5,000 people over at Patriots Point. So good job showing up and showing out for the team, and hopefully they'll be back and chasing that championship next year. That'll do it for this edition of Holy City Center Radio. Thank you so much for listening. If you have a moment, please rate, review, subscribe, or anything else that you can do on the streaming platform you're currently listening on. That would be amazing, and I thank you so much. If you want to go that extra level, you can go to patreon.com/Holy City Center to sign up for one of those support tiers. The merch site, as of this recording, is not up on the new designed website. So if you do want merch, just hang out for a little bit, and it'll be back up on the new version of the site in due time. I also want to thank Lindsay Marie Collins with LMC Soundsystem for producing this and every episode of Holy City Center Radio, and a big thank you to Tyler Boone, whose music you hear in each and every episode as well. Hope you have a good rest of your week. I'll talk to you on Friday. Go check out the new website. Give me some feedback if you have it. I appreciate you all listening. Until Friday, good night and good luck.